What did they do to me? Welcome to my channel. Tonight we are premiering an episode written by our writer, Angie, and directed by Kevin. Let's dive right into Room 203. On an evening much like any other, I started my night shift at St. Hilara's Hospital on a Tuesday, the kind of evening where the fog outside wrapped the building like a shroud. The hospital was old, the kind with long, narrow hallways, flickering fluorescent lights, and a silence that weighed heavier than the concrete walls themselves. Everyone whispered about Room 203, though no one admitted why. Some said patients in that room never stayed long. Others said they weren't meant to leave at all. It was a place you only went if you had to. I had worked here for 6 months, and I was just another nurse learning to survive the night. I had never had a reason to go into Room 203 until that night. I walked through the dimly lit hallways, the only sound my own footsteps echoing softly in the vast emptiness. The rhythmic beep of monitors was the background track to my routine. As I made my way to each room, checking the charts, calling out patient names, everything seemed normal. But when I reached Room 203, the door was slightly ajar. I paused. The room had been empty the previous night. The log said it was still empty. There was no scheduled surgery or transfer of patients. And yet there was a figure sitting upright on the bed. A man, maybe in his 40s, staring straight ahead. His eyes were dull, unfocused, but he was breathing. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing strangely in the large room. "Mr. Peterson, is that you?" The man didn't respond. When I looked down at the chart, my hands trembled. There was no record of him. No admission. Nothing. My mind raced. Did I just imagine him? I blinked. When I looked back, the bed was empty. I touched the cool surface of the wall beside the bed, trying to ground myself. I told myself I must have dozed off for a second, just a second, and he must have been a new patient admitted while I was charting. I grabbed my pen and quickly scribbled a note. I would check back in 15 minutes. I needed to finish my rounds, and Mr. Peterson wasn't listed in the daily log, so there was no need for immediate concern. As I hurried out of the room, my hand brushed against something. I stopped. Was that a bandage? No. It was a name tag. It read Nurse Lewis. I felt a chill. Nurse Lewis had retired 10 years ago, and that name tag was brand new. Shaking off the unsettling feeling, I continued my rounds. But my thoughts kept returning to Room 203. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. I found myself taking longer routes to avoid passing Room 203. I glanced at the clock. Soon it would be my break. When my partner asked if I wanted to grab a coffee, I agreed, hoping the caffeine would help chase away the strange encounter. We talked about movies and weekend plans, anything to keep our minds off the unsettling events of the night before. After my break, I tried to focus on my work, but every time I thought I had shaken off the lingering unease, something happened to remind me of Room 203. A nurse mentioned a new patient being admitted late at night. It wasn't unusual, and after reviewing the admission list, I found nothing out of the ordinary. Hours dragged on. I checked in on Mrs. Elmwood, Mr. Martinez, Miss Carter, each patient becoming more of a habit than a person. Finally, my shift neared its end. At 6 sharp, the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains. I started my handover, noting the routines, vitals, and medications for each patient. The day shift nurses arrived, eager to start their day. As I watched them, I couldn't help but feel a surge of relief. Then it happened. As I reached Room 203, the new nurse who had just joined us gasped. She looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. "That room, it's empty. There's no record of a patient ever being there." My heart skipped a beat. This was new. The room had never been empty. It had a patient, even if the charts said otherwise. She continued, "We tried to admit a patient once, just one night ago, but the computer wouldn't accept it. It said the room was full." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I think it's haunted." After some time, my vision started blurring. I fought to stay awake, desperate to make it through the next few hours until my shift ended. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I stumbled out of the hospital, my head pounding. I spent the day trying to sleep, but each time I closed my eyes, I saw room 203, the blurry memory of the man sitting on the bed, his vacant stare, the name tag. The incident at the hospital consumed my thoughts. When I went back at night, the events of the previous day replayed in my mind. Had I imagined it all? Was there a logical explanation? I grappled with questions, finding no answers. As I made my rounds, the rhythmic beeping of the monitors suddenly felt ominous. Each shadow seemed to dance with unseen figures, and the whispers in the vents grew louder, more insistent. On my way to room 203, I noticed a nurse rushing toward me. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic. "You have to come quickly," she whispered urgently. "It's room 203, the monitors flashing. The patient, he's gone." As we rushed towards room 203, the reality of the situation crashed down on me. The room was empty, devoid of any human presence. The sheets on the bed were undisturbed. If the patient had left, he would have left traces, right? But when we checked the logs, the records showed a continuous stream of doctors and nurses visiting room 203, consulting, treating, monitoring. Yet there was no trace of a departure, no sign of a patient leaving. The questions swirling in my mind demanded answers. Where was the patient? How could he vanish without a trace? The room's eerie silence amplified my unease, amplifying the mystery of the missing patient. Days turned into nights, and the enigma of room 203 continued to deepen. Each shift brought new challenges, new puzzles. I found myself drawn to the room, compelled to uncover the truth behind its chilling secrets. One night, amidst the chaos, I received a text from my friend, Sarah, who also worked at the hospital. Her message was brief, startling. "Don't go to room 203, please." Her tone was urgent, desperate. I replied, confused. "Why? What's wrong?" But my message went unanswered. Sarah was known for her quick replies. Her silence was as alarming as the cryptic message itself. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to revisit room 203. I cautiously pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air grew heavy, the temperature plummeted. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the corner of the room. My heart pounded against my ribs. I stared in disbelief. Was it a patient, a visitor, a spirit? Fear tightened its grip on me, paralyzing me in place. The figure approached, and I could see it was a man. His face was obscured by the darkness, his eyes like hollow pits. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He didn't reply. He continued to approach. Panic surged through me. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen with fear. The man loomed closer, and I could see his eyes filled with an otherworldly glow. "Help me," he whispered, his voice raspy, distant. "Don't let them hurt me." His words sent shivers down my spine. Who was he? What did he mean? I wanted to help, but I was paralyzed. As he drew closer, I could smell decay, a stench of death. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. The room seemed to close in on me. Then, in a flash, he vanished. One moment he was there, and the next he was gone. The stench lingered. I could feel his presence, but I couldn't see him. Shaken to my core, I stumbled out of the room and into the hallway. The event left me breathless, my mind racing. What had I just witnessed? Was it a ghost, a figment of my imagination? The hospital, once familiar, now felt alien, the silence deafening. I tried to shake off the experience, but it clung to me, casting a long shadow over my shifts. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares replaced my dreams. I was haunted by visions of the ghostly man from room 203. His pleading eyes, his decaying smell, they tormented me. With each passing day, the line between reality and nightmare blurred. The hospital became my prison, room 203, my tormentor. I was trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. As I delved deeper into unraveling the mysteries of room 203, I discovered a hidden past that was both chilling and heartbreaking. The room was more than just a place in the hospital. It was a portal to tragedy, a tomb for the forgotten. Then came a turning point. I used their own tactics against them, exploiting their weaknesses, playing on their fears. I manipulated them, driving them to their breaking point. In the ensuing chaos, I found my opportunity. I fled, desperate to get as far away from the hospital as possible. I ran, not knowing where I was going, just away. As I stumbled through the darkness, I knew I had escaped the physical clutches of room 203, but the psychological scars remained. The trauma of my experience forever changed me. I sought therapy, trying to piece together the fragments of my shattered psyche, but the darkness of room 203 continued to haunt me. One day I found myself drawn back to the hospital. I stood before room 203, its presence as oppressive as before. Then, to my horror, I realized that I had become part of its story. The door swung open, revealing a dark, empty room. I hesitated, my heart pounding. The urge to enter was irresistible.